and welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm Dan Wendelin, your host and storyteller. Years ago, I began recording the bedtime stories I told my children every night. Now, I'd like to share those stories with you. I hope you enjoy my Stories for Wonderful Children. There was a fish. Not just any sort of fish, but a puffer fish. A big, round puffer fish with bumps all over her. She has a pretty brown color. Some of her bumps were blue and some of them were red. She liked to swim. She liked to swim up near the surface of the water, and she liked to swim down as deep in the water as she could. Her name was Ramuna, and she swam through all the oceans of the world. She would swim from the Indian Ocean into the Pacific Ocean and up to the Arctic Ocean and down to the Atlantic Ocean and...
The Atlantic Ocean?
Yes. And she would swim and swim and swim. She would swim all day long. And at the end of the day, she would find a place. Usually, she would try to find a coral reef that was full of lots of little nooks and crannies and holes. And she would find a hole that was about the right size for a puffer fish like her. And she would swim into the hole and she would wedge herself back in it so that nothing big could eat her. And she would go to sleep. And when Ramuna went to sleep, she would dream. Because she would dream the dreams of a pufferfish. Now, most pufferfish dreams are about swimming, as you might sort of suspect. And other pufferfish dreams are about eating. And a few pufferfish dreams are about laying eggs so that you can have baby pufferfish. And once in a very long while, she had a dream about sleeping. Which is sort of a boring sort of dream to have.
Yeah.
But one night, when she had just arrived in the Atlantic Ocean and had gone to sleep in a reef she had never been in before, she went to sleep and she had a dream unlike any dream she'd had before. In it, she was not in the water. She was not in the water. And she was having a dream that was not a good dream. She was out of the water, and she could not move, and a big black horse came along and stepped on one of her fins, and it hurt. And she went, ow, 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 ow. And the horse just laughed in this nasty kind of laugh, and then it ran off. And she couldn't get the dream to end, and she was very upset. She was just laying on this beach going, ow, 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 I want to be in the water and I want my fin to feel better. And oh, somebody help me. And then she heard a sound she had never heard before. Because she lived in the water, she heard a sound like this. And the sound seemed to be getting louder. And she heard someone on the sand right next to her. What she had heard, the sound that she did not know, was the sound of fairy wings. For a fairy had heard her crying for help in her dream. It was a dream fairy. And the dream fairy walked over to Ramuna and said, hello, may I help you? And Ramuna said, oh, I'm having a terrible dream. I'm a pufferfish and I swim and I love to swim and all my dreams are about swimming and now I had this dream where I'm stuck on a beach and a great black horse came along and stepped on my fin. And the fairy said, oh, well, I'm Isabel. I'm a dream fairy. It sounds like you had a run-in with the nightmare. He doesn't usually bother fish dreams. It's very unusual. But here, let me help you. And she took out her wand, and she pointed her wand at Ramuna's injured fin, and she said, "Bibbidi-bobbidi," and a light, sort of a dreamy moonlit-colored night light shot out of the wand, and it covered Ramuna's fin, and Ramuna's fin was immediately better, and it didn't hurt anymore. And Ramuna said, "Oh, thank you so much." And Isabel said, "Well, let's see about getting you back in the water." So she picked Ramuna up, and she walked her down to the edge, and she waded into the waves, and then she let her go with a little splash, and Ramuna swam off and said, "Oh, thank you so much." She said, "If I ever get the chance, and I ever meet you again, I'll try to repay you the debt I owe." And Isabel said, "Oh, you don't owe me anything. I'm a dream fairy. I keep dreams the way they should be, and I try to keep the nightmare from causing people problems." And Ramuna said, "Just the same, thank you." And then she swam off, and as she swam off, she found herself waking up. And as she woke up, she swam out of the little hole, and she began again swimming through the vast oceans of earth. Well, that might very well have been the end of the story. But as it turned out, Isabel was very good at her job. She was probably the very best of the dream fairies. She was extremely good at finding people who were having dreams that weren't going right, and at finding places the nightmare had been, and fixing things very quickly. And after some time, the nightmare began to grow tired of having all the things that he had so carefully set wrong put right again by this annoying little dream fairy named Isabel. And the nightmare decided that it was time for Isabel to go. And he knew that in dreams, Isabel was just as powerful as he was. And he knew that he dared not try to fight her inside the dream, because he might win, but she might win too. And the nightmare was a coward. The nightmare only liked fights that he knew he could win, or fights where the other person couldn't fight back, like stepping on a poor helpless fish on a beach. And so the nightmare concocted another plan, a plan to get Isabel out of the dream. He contacted someone who lived in the real world, someone who is good at dealing with all sorts of things. That someone was named Rich Freddy. The nightmare came to Rich Freddy in a dream, and he said this. He said, "I am the nightmare." He said, "I can give you terrible dreams for the rest of your life, but if you will do something for me, I will never trouble your dreams again." And Rich Freddy said, "Fine, whatever. I just want to get woken up again so I can go make some more money. What do you need to do?" The nightmare said, "I have a problem, and I do not like problems." He said, "I have a dream fairy that I need to get out of the dream. I need you to supply me with the means to do this." And Rich Freddy said, "All right, I'll see what I can do. You come back here, and I'll meet you in my dreams in 3 nights. Very well. Do not fail me." And Rich Freddy indeed did all sorts of research and used his money to find out ways of getting dream fairies out of dreams. Well, he discovered a way. he discovered a way. And he was at that particular time on one of his factories that floated. A factory that floated in the middle of the ocean, and it was sucking up water and using the water to make snow globes, which he was going to sell and get richer and richer and richer yet. Well, when the nightmare came back, Rich Freddy said, "Look here, all you have to do is you just need to prance around in my dream for a while, make it bad, and when she comes here in my dream, I'll bring her out into the real world with this little device I've got here." "Very well. You have done well," said the nightmare. And so the nightmare did all sorts of things in Rich Freddy's dream to attract the attention of Isabel, and then he left. And sure enough, Isabel arrived, and Rich Freddy was pretending to be sad. He was sitting there crying, saying, "Boo-hoo-hoo, boo-hoo-hoo." And Isabel said, "Oh, don't worry. How can I help you?" And Rich Freddy said, "Oh, the nightmare did terrible things, but if you could just press the button on this box, I'm sure they'd all be better." And Isabel, who wanted very much to help, came over and said, "Well, certainly." And she pressed the button on the box, and the box popped open, and this eerie purple light shot out and hit her, and she said, "What's going on?" And then Rich Freddy woke up, and there, in a box next to his bed, there was this thumping noise, and he said, "Ha ha, I'm Rich Freddy. I'm rich now, and I'll never have a bad dream again, and I'll get richer yet." And he walked to the edge of his factory, and he opened the box, and he dumped Isabel out into the water, where he knew that fairies get their wings waterlogged, and that she would drown. But as Isabel sank below the water, a surprising thing happened. Because the ocean is a very big place, and the chances of a little pufferfish happening to swim by just as a fairy that she owed a favor to hit the water are remote indeed. But you know, sometimes life is funny that way. And as Ramuna was swimming by, plop, right next to her, plopped in something. And when she turned to look at it, she saw, and she recognized that it was Isabel, and that Isabel was in trouble, and she quickly swam over, and Isabel grabbed on to, Ramuna grabbed onto Isabel's dress in her mouth, and she swam up to the surface so that Isabel was at the top. And Isabel went, "Oh, thank you, whoever you are." And she looked down and she said, "Do I know you?" And Ramuna, who had her mouth full of Isabel's dress, just shook her head. And then Isabel said, "Can you get me someplace dry?" And Isabel immediately began to swim with all her might. And she swam for the rest of that day. And just as the sun began to go down, she got Isabel on a beach of an island. And Isabel stepped up onto the water, and she took her wand and she rammed it down into the sand. And she turned and she said, "Thank you, Ramuna. You have done me a great favor, and I am in your debt." And Ramuna said, "No, you saved me from a terrible dream, and I have only repaid the debt I owed you." She said, "You do owe me one thing, though." And Isabel said, "What?" And because Isabel, while Ramuna was swimming, had told Ramuna the whole story of what had happened, Ramuna said, "This is what you owe me. You have to get back into the dreams. And you have to do your job and make the nightmare miserable, because he can't even make one person's dream unhappy." And Isabel said, "Oh, don't worry. He made the wrong fairy mad." And Then she took the tip of one finger and she put it on the wand that was in the sand. And she closed her eyes. And just as she closed her eyes, the moon began to rise in the night sky, because night had fallen while they were talking. And Isabel said, "My sisters, hear me. I am lost from the dream and need to find my way." And her wand began to glow, and the sand beneath her began to glow, until it sparkled like fairy dust, and it seemed to reflect the night sky. And then Isabel fell to the sand like she was asleep, like she had fallen asleep. But as she fell with her wand in her hand, she fell through the sand and disappeared. And when she opened her eyes again, she was in the world of dreams. And Isabel had always been very good at what she did. She had always been there right after the nightmare had been there. And so no one ever suffered a bad dream for long. But after she got back, the nightmare had a very bad time of it. Because every dream he arrived in, Isabel was already there. And she was always there tapping her foot and looking right at him when he appeared, and holding her wand in one hand, and with her other hand she was holding out her finger and going, not in this dream. And he would have to turn and go. And she was so persistent, that he did finally find just one place that he could bring bad dreams to. One place that Isabel did not defend. One person whose dream she would not venture into. And so for a whole year, there was only one person in all the world that the nightmare ever brought bad dreams to.
What was that person?
And that person,
I'm guessing Rich Freddy.
Was Rich Freddy.
What did Rich Freddy think?
Rich Freddy was very unhappy for a whole year, because he did not sleep well because he had bad dreams. And because he didn't sleep well, it made it very hard for him to make money. And so at the end of that year, he did something else. Something Rich Freddy had never, ever done before.
What?
He found a way, using all his wealth, to get Isabel's attention. And when she finally came to his dream, he did something new for him. He said, "I'm sorry." And Isabel accepted his apology. And from then on, Rich Freddy never had a bad dream again either. And the nightmare had to find a new job. And that
What was his new job?
is the end of tonight's story.
Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. Today's story was created and edited by me, Dan Wendelin. Commentary was supplied by my children. Intro and outro music composed by Brandon Thompson. If you enjoyed the story, please tell someone about it or leave a review on iTunes. If you'd like to, you can contact us by email at storiesforwonderfulchildren@gmail.com. I'll see you next time.